In 1940, the world was collapsing into chaos. Nazi Germany had swept across Europe like a storm. Poland, Denmark, Norway, Belgium, France, all had fallen. Adolf Hitler's army looked unstoppable. And soon, only one nation remained standing between tyranny and freedom, the United Kingdom. Britain was battered. London's skies were blackened by German bombers. Every night, families huddled in shelters, praying to see the morning light. Fear was everywhere. People whispered, "Maybe it's over. Maybe surrender is the only way to survive." But then came a voice that roared louder than bombs, louder than fear, louder than despair. It was the voice of Winston Churchill. Churchill's story didn't begin with greatness. Born in 1874, in a noble family, expectations were high. But young Winston disappointed many. At school, he struggled. Teachers called him lazy, careless, even stupid. He had a speech impediment, a lisp, and often mumbled his words. His father thought he would never amount to anything. But Churchill had a fire inside. Where others saw failure, he saw a challenge. He began reading obsessively, writing passionately, and practicing his speeches until words flowed like weapons. As a young man, Churchill joined the army, fought bravely, and became a war hero. He then entered politics with fierce ambition. But politics is never easy. He made mistakes, big ones. During World War I, he championed the Gallipoli campaign, which ended in disaster, costing thousands of lives. The public was furious. His career collapsed. He was mocked, humiliated, and cast aside. For years, he lived in political wilderness, painting and writing to escape his despair. Most men would have quit. But Churchill refused. He once said, "Success is going from failure to failure without losing enthusiasm." In 1940, when Hitler's armies crushed France, Britain stood alone. The people were desperate for a leader strong enough to face the storm. And so, the man once laughed at, once discarded, was called back. Winston Churchill became Prime Minister. He stepped into power not at a time of peace, but at Britain's darkest hour. In his very first speech as Prime Minister, he told his nation, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat." There was no false hope, no sugar-coated words, only truth, and a promise that Britain would never give up. When Hitler's forces prepared to invade, Churchill's voice became the shield of his people. His speeches were not mere words, they were weapons. "We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall never surrender." These words transformed ordinary citizens into warriors of spirit. Even as bombs rained on London, the people stood firm. Children were evacuated, families lost homes. But they did not lose hope. And behind their courage was one man's relentless belief that freedom must survive. Churchill built alliances, particularly with the United States, and together they launched D-Day, the largest invasion in history, that pushed Hitler back and changed the course of the war. In 1945, after 6 years of terror, Europe was free. And the world knew one truth: without Churchill's leadership, without his refusal to surrender, freedom itself might have been lost. Winston Churchill was not perfect. He was stubborn, he made mistakes, he faced criticism even after victory. But history does not remember him for his flaws. History remembers him for his courage, his voice, and his ability to inspire when hope was almost dead. He taught the world this lesson: success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Churchill's story is proof that even a man full of flaws can rise to greatness if he refuses to surrender whenever life feels impossible. Whenever failure surrounds you, remember this story. Remember Winston Churchill. Because the fight is never over until you decide to quit.